Desmond Ridder is back as the Falcons starter, but is it too early to talk about who the Falcons might take in the 2024 NFL Draft?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. We're going to help you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, guys, if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman. Been covering the Falcons for many years, formerly at FalcFans.com, RIP, formerly on Twitter at FalcFans, RIP. Still going strong on this illustrious podcast. You may know me as Sirius Black. You may know me as Mr. Drew as well. And we want to give a special shout out to the everydayers that make this illustrious podcast their first listen or first watch each and every day. And if you want to become an everydayer, all you got to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. So normally, these Sunday night episodes would be my rapid reaction to the Falcons' most recent performance. I was going to say loss, but hey, better times are ahead. But because the Falcons were on a bye week, we're not talking about a game. So instead, today's going to be a mock draft Monday, right? Where I will go through all 32 picks, projecting as of, 7:45 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. So not factoring the Sunday night game. And I don't know officially. I don't think the Bills-Jets game is officially over. So a little tweaking on the order based off of where that game should finish. But we're going to get into a mock draft. I'm going to project all 32 picks. I'm going to explain the Falcons picks because it's going to be a little controversial to a lot of you guys. But before we get there is news on the Falcons front because better days are potentially ahead for the Falcons because Desmond Ridder has been renamed the Falcons starting quarterback. Ian Rappaport on Sunday morning first reported it. Various local reporters confirmed it, that Ridder will be the starting quarterback once again. We will assume that Arthur Smith will confirm this report on his Monday presser ahead of next week's Saints game. And if you've been listening to Locked On Falcons for this last week, if you've been an everydayer, then this is not a surprise. This is something that we've been expecting since the Falcons lost to the Cardinals last week, that move was impending. And, my personal opinion was I thought it was the wrong decision to bench Desmond Ridder 2 weeks ago when the Falcons made that choice. And so, it's the right decision now to go back to him, one right makes it whatever. You guys get it. But as I said to Jarvis this past week, I'm sure the Falcons will spin this as this was just a reset. It was a temporary sort of sit down of Desmond Ridder as a way to sort of hopefully get part of their grand scheme to get him playing better. And of course, as I told Jarvis, that's a whole bunch of malarkey, as Joe Biden would say. It's a whole bunch of BS, if you ask me. But if the Falcons start winning games, they can say whatever they want, right? It doesn't matter, to the victors go the spoils, so to speak. They get to dictate the message at that point in time. And if you've been listening to the podcast over the last 2 weeks, you heard me not mince words. I feel like the 2 weeks of Taylor Heinicke as the Falcons starter against the Vikings, against the Cardinals, was borderline a disaster. We saw this offense regress. I broke it down, all those reasons why we saw regression from this offense with Taylor Heinicke at the helm over the last 2 weeks in my all 22 reviews of the Viking game, of that Cardinals game. So please check that out if you haven't already. And so that's part of the reason why I say, this is all ridiculous if this was all part of a plan, because it's like, why would your plan be to Desmond Ridder's going to be better by watching Taylor Heinicke suck for 2 weeks? That doesn't make any sense, right? But presumably we'll see Desmond Ridder be the starter, for the rest of the season. We'll see if Arthur Smith is willing to make that commitment based off of, all the pressers that Arthur Smith has ever done since he became the Falcons head coach back in January of 2021. I doubt he's going to make that sort of commitment. He's not the type that's going to make, he's always like, oh, who knows? We'll see. That's the type of coach he is. So I doubt he'll make that firm commitment to Desmond Ridder as a starter for the rest of the season, but he'll be the starter for now, or whatever the words he'll do. And these next 7 games, I do think Ridder, obviously injuries, unforeseen things could derail that. But my expectation is Ridder will finish out the season as the Falcons starter. And these next 7 games for Desmond Ridder will be kind of make or break for Desmond Ridder, right? I'd love to sit here and tell you guys, oh, it's going to work out beautifully for Desmond Ridder and he's going to be better, coming out of the bye and all this thing. I would love to say that, but I don't know if that's true. And I'd just be blowing smoke up your butt, by telling you that, based off of his body of work, the first 12 starts were pretty up and down. Probably means the next 7 starts are going to be up and down, but one would hope, right, that the ups will far outweigh the downs over these next 7 games. And the Falcons, have a thin margin of error if they want to get that winning season, right? They got to go 5-2 down the stretch, or I guess technically 4-3-1 or 4-2-1, I guess. That'll technically get them to a winning to 500, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, you guys had to sit here how the ties work, but yeah. So 5-2. Let's just keep it simple. Get to 5-2, and hope springs eternal when it comes to that stuff. So earlier this week, I discussed, that we saw progress from Desmond Ridder over his final full starts against Houston, Tampa Bay, and Washington. But of course, the problem in those games were turnovers. He's turned the ball over 7 times in those games. 3 interceptions, 4 fumbles in those 3 games. And those are going to be something that he's going to have to clean up. So hopefully we'll see continued progress, continued improved play from Desmond Ridder, and hopefully we'll see fewer turnovers. Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're going to see no turnovers. Again, based off of the body of work, we'll probably get a couple, but hopefully it's just a couple. So if that's the case, then I think positive things are in favor of the Falcons, but we'll talk more about what this means for the Falcons, what this means for Desmond Ridder, what this team should look like with our upcoming guests here on the podcast as the week unfolds. The plan is for Charles McDonald of Yahoo Sports, Alan Stirk of the Falcoholic, formerly of Locked On Falcons, to guest over the next 2 days of the podcast. I don't know quite the order in which they'll go, to talk about all the stuff that's going on with the team. And so we'll get into that, as your first listen, probably tomorrow, but we'll continue your first listen or first watch today by getting into a mock draft Monday. And I'll be breaking down my way too early, way too early, projection of how the first round will go. And we'll get into all of that, guys, as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. So we know that success for the Atlanta Falcons means surrounding your quarterback with the right team. And the same is true for your business. And so if you're a hiring manager looking to reach your goals in 2023, it's all about the people that you hire. And it's much easier for you to find the right people because you got LinkedIn Jobs, right? LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. They give you the simple tools like screening questions that are going to make it easy for you to focus on the candidates with the right skills, experience, so that you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So as we continue today's Locked On Falcons, I do want to plug the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. That's, of course, Locked On Sports Today. Locked On is an innovator. It's an icon. Everybody wants to be Locked On. Everybody's doing daily podcasts, right? But we're the first one to do a 24/7 national streaming channel here on YouTube. Check out Locked On Sports Today, 24/7, covering the top sports from all the top leagues, top shows, all the local insights, all that across it. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. So let's get into this mock draft. And before I throw it up there on the screen, we got graphics here for you guys on the YouTube side of things. My methodology was pretty simple, right? I basically looked at Dane Brugler's top 50 draft board that he dropped at the beginning of this month and based, where these players went heavily off of that. And then I also listened to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast earlier or last week with Brad Spielberger and Trevor Sikkema, and they went through all 32 teams' NFL top needs, and I based it heavily off of that. I kind of strayed a little bit to kind of fit some quarterbacks in there. We'll get to it. But for the most part, I tried to lean as heavily on those needs as much. So Let's get into the graphics using PFF's mock draft simulator, because they got the clean graphics, so that'll go up on your screen, guys. So, with the number one overall pick, the number one player on Dane Brugler's board was UNC quarterback Drake May. He goes to the Chicago Bears, who hold Carolina's pick. Number 2 was the Arizona Cardinals, and they take wide receiver Marvin Harrison out of Ohio State. Number 3 pick is quarterback Caleb Williams out of USC to the New England Patriots. And basically, Dane Brugler has been pretty adamant since basically August, listening to his various podcasts over the last few months. In some shape or form, he strongly believes that Drake May, Marvin Harrison, and Caleb Williams in some order are going to be the top 3 picks in this draft. And, I think Dane's as plugged in as anybody. So we'll roll with that. So number 4, the Chicago Bears take Penn State offensive tackle Olu Fashanu, shore up their offensive line. Number 5, the Giants take wide receiver out of Florida State, Keon Coleman. Number 6, the Titans take Notre Dame left tackle Joe Alt. Number 7, the Washington Commanders take UCLA, edge rusher Layatu Latu. And with the 8th overall pick that's causing my comments and my chat to go afire, I have the Atlanta Falcons taking Georgia tight end Brock Bowers. I will explain that at the end of today's episode, but I know, just don't hit send on that comment just yet. We'll get there. I know you're angry. I'll explain. Number 9, Green Bay takes Alabama right tackle J.C. Latham. Number 10, Tampa Bay takes quarterback out of Michigan, J.J. McCarthy. This is where I kind of went astray off of Dane and Brad's projections. And I did it again with the next pick. The Jets at number 11 take LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels. Number 12, the Chargers take Clemson cornerback Nate Wiggins, cornerback to be clear. 13, the Rams take Alabama edge rusher Dallas Turner. 14, the Broncos take LSU wide receiver Malik Neighbors. 15, Illinois' defensive tackle Jerzon Newton goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. 16, the Colts take Florida State edge rusher Jared Verse. 17, the Cincinnati Bengals take wide receiver out of Ohio State Emeka Egbuka. His teammate goes number 18 overall to the New Orleans Saints. That is edge rusher out of Ohio State JT Tuimoloau. Number 19, the Buffalo Bills take Washington wide receiver Roma Odunze. Number 20, the Arizona Cardinals with the Houston Texans pick, with their second pick of the first round, take Oklahoma left tackle or right tackle Tyler Guyton, probably kicking Paris Johnson over to the left side. 21, the Minnesota Vikings take Penn State edge rusher Chop Robinson. And 22, Seattle takes Oregon State tackle Tali Esi Fuaga. They're probably kicking him inside to guard. He's a massive human being. 23, the Steelers take Alabama cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. 24, the Houston Texans take his teammate edge rusher Chris Braswell out of Alabama. 25, Miami takes Houston left tackle Patrick Paul. 26, Dallas takes all versatile cornerback, safety, punt returner Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. 27, the San Francisco 49ers take Georgia right tackle Amarius Mims. 28, Jacksonville takes LSU wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. 29, Baltimore takes Arizona left tackle Jordan Morgan, probably kicking him inside the guard as well. And 30, Detroit takes Ohio State cornerback Denzel Burke. 31, Kansas City takes Oregon wide receiver Troy Franklin. And 32, the Philadelphia Eagles run it back with another Georgia player, taking Kamari Lassiter, the cornerback out of Georgia, to finish off the first round. So that is my mock draft, guys. And I'll get into details on why I went with the Falcons selecting a tight end. Oh my goodness. How could I have the Falcons? And it will make sense. Even if you don't agree with the pick, it will make sense by the end of today's episode. I promise you. Just hold off. It will make sense why I went with that selection, but we'll get into that as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So good, bad, or in between, you just can't post angry comments about mock drafts on an empty stomach. And that's where DoorDash will help you by allowing you to order your faves. Right? If you're upset with the Falcons draft pick, order DoorDash to cope, right? And if you love the Falcons taking a certain player, then order DoorDash to celebrate. That's the beauty of DoorDash. They have the unbeatable deals on everything you're looking for so that you can consume your mock drafts just as easily as you can consume your faves, whether that's restaurants, stores, retail, grocery. Order on the app so that you can be mock draft ready. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23. Subject to change, terms apply. That's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23. Don't forget to use that code LOCK23, LOCKED23, for 50% off up to a $10 value on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and spend $15 or more. Subject to change, terms apply. So as I said earlier, the plan is we'll have either Charles McDonald or Alan Stirk, possibly both. We'll see on tomorrow's episode, but we'll be talking to both of those guys over the next couple of days, talking about what's going on with the Falcons, Desmond Ridder, return to the lineup, all that stuff and more. Get you guys back into gear. I hope you've enjoyed your weekend off from a stress-free Falcons football, but I know I've induced more stress into your lives by having the audacity to mock a tight end to the Falcons in the first round. So why did I have Bowers go here? I'll explain that in a second. But, first I'll admit that Brad and Trevor had quarterback and edge as the Falcons' top needs. And when I did a practice run of this mock draft earlier in the week before, today's games kind of derailed the order, which is part of the reason why it was a little later posting, because I had to wait till the 4:00 games to finish to reshuffle the order and redo it all over again. But I did have the Falcons taking Laiatu Latu, the UCLA edge rusher, with the 9th overall selection. But then when Washington, was leapfrogging them, I had Washington take Latu off the board in the most recent version. And I was tempted to go with the Falcons to take a quarterback here, but I'm not ready to go there yet. And so this is where I will sort of, take ownership a little bit and have the ability to zig or zag or whatever, because, as I stated earlier this week on the pod, that I think there are two really high level quarterback prospects in this draft in Drake May and Caleb Williams. I think the drop off to whoever's going to be QB3 is pretty significant, at least as I feel today. Right. And it seems like, listening to the latest from Dane Brugler, I think he has McCarthy number 3. I think he has Shadur Sanders number 4, and then I think Daniels is 5 on his most recent big board. But I think a lot of people assume, and I'm assuming, and from what I've heard about Dane talk about it, a lot of people are assuming that Shadur Sanders is going to go back to school at Colorado, and so that leaves and Daniels is making the case to move up the draft board. But for me, like, I look at these guys, and again, this is my November opinion, and frankly, you should take any draft opinions, at least from anybody other than like the Dane Bruglers and the Daniel Jeremiahs of the world, with a grain of salt in November. This probably will change over the next, several months as we get closer to April, and that's when the opinions really do matter. But my opinion in November is, I think a lot of these guys after the big two at the quarterback position are certainly guys that I think can be effective starters in the NFL, good starters in the NFL, but they are more to me in that sort of Ridder, Will Levis, Kenny Pickett tier of guy that I don't know if I'm convinced can come in day one and be a week 1 starter in the NFL in the same ways that Richardson and, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are. And to me, I don't know if you're taking a quarterback in the top 10 if you're not convinced of that. And that's part of the reason why both of those guys went like 11 and 12. I refuse to put them in the top 10 in this mock for that reason. So we'll see how that opinion changes. And so and I also, we'll see what Ridder does. Again, as I said earlier, Ridder basically has the next 7 games to make the case for the reason why the Falcons shouldn't draft a quarterback. And we'll see if he successfully makes that case. And I can understand why, the Falcons were one of a handful of teams that Brad Spielberger designated as QB needy, simply because I think a lot of people are like, well, they already benched Ridder once, so clearly he's not the guy. Which, again, I understand that logic. It makes perfect sense why people, but as I say, they should have never benched him in the first place. And that was, don't base your opinion off of one terrible decision. Base your opinion off of the correct path. But we'll see how well that take ages. So why Brock Bowers? 3 simple letters, BPA. Simple as that, right? same basic logic that I used, 11 months ago when we talked about, this Bijan Robinson guy could be the Falcons' first round pick. And, I was labeled crazy at the time. People said I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't know anything. And I just sat here and I go, like, it makes sense if you understand the Falcons. Again, if you think of it from what would the Falcons do, which is kind of the point of mock drafts, not what I would do, not what you would do. It's just like, hey, what would the Falcons do? And again, for the other 31 NFL teams in this mock, I was just like, I just base it off of what Dane and Brad think they will do. And the one team I can insert my own opinion is the Falcons, because, I know pretty good, done a pretty good job. But it's the same reason, right? Why Bijan was the pick, because Bijan was very highly rated. BPA, same thing. Bowers is number 5 on Dane's big board. I think he's number 5 on PFF's big board, by the way, as well. You're sitting there going, the Falcons already have tight ends. Yeah, you're right. But you know what also is true about the Falcons? The Falcons use two or more tight ends more than any other team in the NFL. 53% of their snaps this year feature 2 or more tight ends on the field. So this is the most tight end centric offense in the NFL. So, the fact, just like last year, just because they had Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson wasn't going to stop them from taking a running back, given how much they want to run the football. Just because they have Jonnu Smith and Kyle Pitts, doesn't stop them from taking a tight end. Just because they're, it's the same thing. It's the same logic, guys. And again, I know you guys are angry about that, but like I just sit here and I go, like, it's the same thing. So, the other factor that plays into Brock Bowers' case for the Atlanta Falcons is character, right? And this is the most underrated aspect of this regime, that they basically base their draft decisions highly off of character. They're much more in line with the Mike Smith regime under Thomas Dimitroff than the Dan Quinn regime under Thomas Dimitroff when it comes to their drafting, which is, we want high character guys. And Dan Quinn was like, I want athletes. I want fast physical football players, and we'll worry about the character stuff later, right? That's not this regime. Arthur Smith is like, no, we're all about them captains. We're all about seniors. We're all about all that stuff, practice habits, all that stuff. And, as far as I hear, from Brock Bowers, Georgia fans in the comments, let me know. Let me know if I'm wrong, if I've heard wrong about this. But, as far as character goes, Brock Bowers is going to get an A++ across the board from all NFL teams. He's going to be one of the highest character players. And, the basic premise is like, hey, the most recent example of that is like, oh, he was supposed to miss 6 weeks due to this recent injury. He missed what, like 3.5? Because he was just like, he just loves football and he loves his team and all that stuff, heart, grit, determination, all that stuff. He farts excellence, and craps determination, all that stuff that coaches fall in love with. So I sit here and I go like, yeah, Brock Bowers is probably, if he's on the board, he's going to be your pick. Now, when I ran this exercise again earlier this week, it was Latu was the pick. Bowers went number 5, I think, to the Bears, who were picking at that point when I ran this exercise earlier in the week. So again, take it with a grain of salt. We got 7 games, 8 weeks to determine what this draft order is going to be. Again, as you guys sit here and rant about this is ridiculous and the Falcons would never do that, and if they do this, blah, all that stuff that people do, again, rather than ranting in my comment section, go talk to a therapist, right? You shouldn't be getting upset about mock drafts, guys. Mock drafts are just people smelling their own farts. That's all it is. It's just smelling your own farts. I'm like, what is that, cabbage? Oh, that smells good. I can taste it. That's all it is, man. It's just smelling your own farts. So I'm sitting here like, yeah, I love this. I love the smell of my own home cooking. Sitting here, and you guys are just like, just wafting it in your face, and just like that's all it is, man. It's mock drafts. It's November. No one cares. I know. I just know there's going to be one person just like foaming at the mouth. Oh, Brock Bowers, this is ridiculous. Just like, a year ago, it's like, sure, it's all ridiculous. It's football, man. It's all ridiculous. All of this is ridiculous. All this attention that we give this stupid team and this stupid sport is all ridiculous. It's all ridiculous. Just accept it's ridiculous and just move on with your life. So, if you just want to waft, the smell of this malodorous affair into your face, then go ahead, do it. Leave a comment. Let me know how much you like the smell of what I've put down, what I've been cooking, what I've been brewing up deep in my tummy, all that stuff. Go ahead, please. I would love you to hear your feedback on that, guys. But that's basically the case. We'll see what happens. Again, quarterback, edge rusher, cornerback, tackle, you know, I don't know, wide receiver. All of these are on the table at this point in time. It's November. Before you start, raving about a fake draft that doesn't exist, a hypothetical, just remember it's a hypothetical and it smells like cabbage, just I just love it. So I just know. I can't wait. I can't wait to read that comment. I'm waiting for it. I just love it. I love it, guys. So, tell me how clueless I am, how ridiculous it is for the Falcons to take a tight end, just like it was ridiculous for them to take a running back last year. Yep. Well, I clearly I don't know what I'm talking about. I just got no idea. Never in my life have I ever had a clue about the Atlanta Falcons. So, that's gonna do it for us, guys. We'll see what these opinions. It's in November. Like all of this stuff is going to be meaningless when we get to January, when we get to February, when we get to March, when we get to April. Hey, you smell that? Yeah, that was a good one, right? Oh yeah, yeah. Let's just sit in here and just waft it. Yeah, let's just all just sit in it, right? That's all we're doing right now. That's it. So we'll be back with more stuff. We'll be back tomorrow. Continue to make us your first listen. We'll get some air freshener and we'll spray the air with Charles McDonald and Alan Stark as the rest of the week unfolds. But that's it, guys. Oh man, I entertained myself, so I hope you guys were thoroughly entertained on today's episode. So that's gonna do it for us. Check out Locked On Sports Today 24 streaming channel. Locked On Sports Atlanta has a 24 streaming channel. We'll be back with more here on Locked On Falcons, more on Locked On Sports Atlanta, get you geared back into all things Atlanta Falcons all week long as we get ready for Hate Week. Oh, Ross Jackson, I ain't forgot about it. I know the Falcons have been very dramatic. I've been distracted the last couple of weeks, throwing shots, throwing barbs, but we're back, baby. It's Hate Week, baby. We're back. So, all right, I'll see you, Ross. Enjoy your turkey. Enjoy. Yes, the turkey. The tryptophan. Yes, the greens. Yes, I love it. Those yams. They smell so good.